You might think that I was a coward, but I can't explain it any other way. What I did wasn't out of fear, it was just inevitable. Something deep inside me told me I had no choice but to disappear. It wasn't like I was escaping a bad marriage or running from debt. I wasn't even trying to escape from anyone, really. I was trying to escape from myself. I woke up one morning and realized that I wasn't living a life I wanted to live. I was existing. I was going through the motions, putting on the mask of a good husband, a good father. But beneath the surface, I was falling apart. My mind was unraveling. There was this gnawing sensation, this feeling of suffocation. I couldn't breathe, not in the life I had built. The weight of everything was pressing down on me, and I couldn't take it anymore. The truth is, I never planned to vanish like I did, but I also didn't know how to stay. So, one night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I would leave. I would just leave, with no warning, no explanation. It wasn't about anyone else. There was no drama, no cheating, no betrayal. It was just me, taking control of my life in the only way I knew how. I didn't make a plan. There was no list of things to do or places to go. I didn't even tell anyone. I just left. I took my wallet, my phone, and some cash from the savings account. That was it. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't need to know. It was the act of disappearing that mattered more than anything else. I didn't want anyone, especially not my wife, Lucy, finding me. The first few days were a blur. I rented a small, anonymous apartment in a city I'd never been to. I changed my appearance, cut my hair, and used a different name. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But then, as the days stretched into weeks, something started to change. I felt the weight of my decision settle in. I was alone, completely alone. And while I thought I had wanted that isolation, I quickly realized it wasn't what I thought it would be. I had gotten used to being a part of something, my family, my life. I missed the small things. The way Lucy would ask me for advice. The way my friends would joke around with me at the pub. But even more than that, I missed the idea of a life. I missed the future I had been building in my mind. I had made myself disappear, but in doing so, I had erased all of that. It wasn't freedom I felt, it was emptiness. A week after I left, I started getting messages. They started as a trickle, emails from my old account, texts from an unknown number. At first, I ignored them. After all, I had vanished for a reason. But then, the messages became harder to ignore. Are you okay? It's been days, Rowan. Where are you? The first few texts felt like nothing. Just a worried wife, wondering where her husband had gone. But as the days went on, they became more desperate. Please don't do this. Just come home. Let's talk. We can figure this out. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was still trying to figure out what I was doing. But then, the tone shifted. I know what you did. I know what you're hiding. And if you think you can escape from this, think again. I will find you. That was when I realized something. This wasn't just about me anymore. My disappearance had triggered something much larger than I ever anticipated. Lucy wasn't just worried. She was looking for me. Not in the normal, worried spouse kind of way. No, this was different. This was an obsession. She had a reason to find me. And whatever that reason was, it was becoming darker by the minute. At first, I thought it was just her trying to hold on to the life she thought we had. But now I wasn't so sure. The messages weren't just concerned. They were threatening. The last one I got from her said it all. If you don't come back, I will make sure you regret it. No one can hide forever. I didn't know what to make of it. I had expected her to be upset. I had expected her to be hurt. But this was something else. The lines between concern and obsession were blurring, and I was starting to feel like the hunted one in my own life. I never thought she would take it this far, but I also never expected to go this far myself. I had made my decision to disappear, but now, it seemed I had also made the decision to face whatever consequences came with it. And that, in itself, would be a fight I wasn't sure I was prepared for. The question wasn't whether I would stay hidden anymore. It was whether I could survive what was coming next. Because I had no doubt she would find me. I didn't think it would go this far. Honestly, I didn't expect it to go anywhere at all. But here I am, staring at the same phone I used to send her messages, wondering how it got to this point. The texts kept coming. They weren't the simple "I miss you" or "Where are you?" messages you might expect from someone in love. These were different. They felt like warnings. The first one came 3 days after I left. The subject line was just my name, Rowan. It was short, but heavy with weight, You can't run forever. It was the kind of message that made your heart skip a beat, not because it was a threat, but because it was personal, deeply personal. I tried to ignore it, thinking it would eventually stop. But then, another message came the next day. I know you're there. Stop pretending like I won't find you. I checked the sender. The number was untraceable. She had found a way to reach me without leaving any trace of herself behind. At this point, I knew I couldn't keep running. Not physically, not mentally. Every move I made felt like it was being watched, like the walls around me were closing in. I tried to change my phone number, move to a different part of the city, but the messages didn't stop. If anything, they became more intense, more detailed. She knew things she shouldn't. She knew where I was going, what I was doing. One morning, I woke up to find a message that read, I watched you leave the cafe yesterday. I hope it was worth it, Rowan. It's all part of the plan now. I had never told anyone where I was going. The cafe had been an impromptu stop while I was running errands. Nothing special. But she knew. That's when the panic set in. How was she tracking me? It didn't make sense. No one knew where I was, except for her, and I was starting to realize that she might have been closer than I thought. But there was something else, something that made the pit in my stomach grow even deeper. The last message wasn't just about me. It wasn't about her being upset that I had left. No, this was different. This was about control. You don't get to walk away, Rowan. I won't let you. The wording haunted me. The chilling certainty behind it felt like she wasn't just chasing me. She was playing a game, and I was the one who had to lose. I thought about reaching out to the authorities, but something told me that wouldn't help. In fact, it might make things worse. She wasn't just some ordinary person with a grudge. She had become something else, something relentless. And whatever she was after, she wouldn't stop until she had it. I wasn't the only one in this game anymore. She had turned it into something that neither of us could back out of. It was a dangerous dance, and I had no idea where it would lead. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. And Mara wasn't just searching for me. She was hunting me down, piece by piece. I thought I could outrun it. I really did. But the thing about running is, eventually, you have to stop. And when you stop, it catches up to you. It was 3 weeks after I left. I had moved from place to place, changed my name, even went as far as to get a new job under a different identity. The paranoia was eating at me, but I had to stay hidden. Mara wasn't just sending messages anymore. Now it was calls. Late at night, always when I thought I was safe. Every time I checked my phone, there was something new. The voicemails were chilling, her voice soft and controlled, but laced with an undercurrent of madness that sent a cold shiver down my spine. Rowan, you don't know what you've started. I've done what you asked. I've played along. But I won't stop looking for you. Not until I find you. You owe me this. She didn't say it outright, but I could hear it between the lines. She was becoming unhinged. And as much as I tried to push her out of my thoughts, I couldn't stop imagining her, somewhere out there, looking for me, tracking my every move. But then something unexpected happened. One morning, as I was sipping coffee in a quiet corner of a new cafe, a man walked in. He was tall, clean-shaven, and dressed in a dark suit. He didn't look like someone you'd expect to notice. But I noticed him. There was something about the way he moved, the way he scanned the room, that made my stomach churn. And then it hit me. This man wasn't a random stranger. He was looking for someone. I had seen that exact same look in Mara's eyes, the same desperation, the same cold determination. My blood ran cold. I didn't wait to see what he did next. I grabbed my things and left. I moved fast. I had to. My heart was pounding in my chest as I stepped out into the street, the sound of my own breath ringing in my ears. I ducked into a nearby alley, hoping he hadn't seen me. I pressed my back to the wall, trying to steady myself. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I was certain of one thing. The game had changed. I couldn't help but think of what she had said in her last message. You owe me this. What had I gotten myself into? I thought I was just trying to escape a life I wasn't happy with, but now? Now it felt like I was tangled in something far darker than I could have imagined. For the first time, I considered going back. I almost convinced myself that I could face her, tell her I was sorry, explain everything. But then I remembered the way that man looked at me in the cafe, and I realized there was no going back. There was no explaining. Whatever Mara was mixed up in, it wasn't just her anymore. I had no idea who else was involved. I left the alley and kept walking, taking detours, doubling back on myself. I didn't dare take public transport. I stayed off my phone. Every corner I turned, every face I passed, made me wonder if they were part of it. Then, just as I thought I could breathe again, I got another message. I'm coming for you, Rowan. You can't hide forever. But this time, something was different. The message came with an attachment. I hesitated before opening it, my hands shaking. When I finally did, my stomach dropped. It was a recent photo of me, taken just minutes earlier as I stood outside that cafe. I wasn't just being hunted by one person anymore. Mara had enlisted others, and they were closing in. The walls were closing in around me, and I knew it. I had made the wrong choice, tried to escape from a life that, despite everything, had tied me down in ways I couldn't escape. But I had no choice now. The only way out was to keep running. But even as I ran, I knew one thing. There was no escaping this. Not anymore. I didn't know how long I could keep this up. The constant running, the constant fear. The messages had become more frequent, more pointed, and more personal. It wasn't just Mara anymore. Someone else was pulling the strings. I knew it. I could feel it. It had been nearly a month since I left everything behind. And still, she was there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to slip up. I was hiding in a small town now, staying in a rundown motel with a name that sounded like it was stuck in the past. I had learned to keep my head down, to avoid any attention. I had even picked up a part-time job washing dishes at a local diner. My routine was monotonous, but it kept me under the radar. Or so I thought. One evening, as I was finishing my shift and wiping down the counter, I heard the sound of someone clearing their throat behind me. I turned around slowly, and there he was, one of them. The man from the cafe. His cold eyes met mine, and my blood ran cold. He hadn't even tried to hide. He was standing there, watching me, like he had known all along where I would be. "Rowan," he said, his voice smooth, almost mocking. "I think we need to have a little chat." I didn't even hesitate. I turned and bolted for the back door, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know if I could outrun him, but I knew I had to try. The sound of his footsteps echoed behind me as I sprinted down the alley, my mind racing. This was it. They had found me. I heard him calling after me, his voice barely audible over the sound of my own breathing. "You can't run forever, Rowan. You'll make this harder on yourself if you don't stop now." But there was no stopping. Not this time. I couldn't let him get his hands on me. I took a sharp turn down another alley, my legs burning from the sprint, my mind screaming for me to think faster, think clearer. I wasn't sure how much farther I could run. But then I stopped dead in my tracks. There, standing at the end of the alley, was Mara. Her face was unreadable, her posture rigid. She was waiting for me, but it wasn't the frantic, desperate woman I had left behind. This was someone else. Someone cold. Someone dangerous. I froze, heart racing in my chest. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her eyes told me everything I needed to know. She had me cornered, and this time, there was nowhere to run. "Rowan," she said softly, her voice calm but chilling. "I told you. You can't hide from me." I backed away, my mind spinning. How did she find me? How did she know I'd be here? The man stepped forward, his hand reaching into his jacket. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. The chase was over. I had nowhere left to go. And then, just as quickly as they appeared, they were gone. Mara turned and walked away without another word, the man following her silently. I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Had it been a warning? A threat? Or was something more sinister going on? I didn't know, but one thing was certain. The hunt had only just begun. I couldn't stop replaying the moment in the alley. Mara's cold, unreadable expression haunted me. I thought I was prepared for this, but nothing could have prepared me for the ice in her eyes. She had no urgency, no desperation. It was as if the entire chase had been a game to her, a game I hadn't even known I was part of. But now I had crossed a line, and somehow, I knew there was no going back. I spent the next few days in a daze, unsure of what to do or where to go. I didn't even bother trying to leave town. They had already found me once, and I had no illusions that I would get far again. I couldn't think straight. Every time I went outside, I felt eyes on me. It was as if the walls were closing in. But there was something else, too, a strange calm in the midst of the chaos, as if the storm was just beginning to build, waiting to break. I went to the diner to keep up appearances, trying to act normal, trying to blend in with the crowd. I told myself I could stay unnoticed. But Mara had made it clear she would never stop. She would never let me go. And what terrified me wasn't just her obsession. It was the fact that she had a network now. A team. She had orchestrated this hunt from the beginning, and I had walked right into her trap. That night, as I sat in my small motel room, the door knocked. It was so soft I almost thought I imagined it. But I knew I didn't. I went to the door cautiously, peeking through the peephole. No one was there. But then, a small envelope was pushed through the crack. I hesitated, looking around, checking my surroundings. There was no one in sight. No movement. No sign of anything unusual. Just the envelope. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, the writing on it simple but chilling. You can't run anymore. Meet me tomorrow. Midnight. The old pier. The note was unsigned. No name, no explanation. Just the command. And as I read the words, my heart began to race. It was her. It had to be. There was no way I was wrong about that. I didn't know what she wanted. I didn't know what game she was playing. But I knew one thing for sure. This was the moment of truth. Either I would confront her, finally end this, or I would keep running. But I couldn't keep running forever. Not anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The thought of meeting her again, after everything that had happened, was too much. But something inside me told me it was the only way to end it. By the time I stepped out into the cold night air, I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I was going to face whatever was coming. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just Mara who was waiting for me at the pier. I arrived at the old pier just before midnight, the salty wind biting at my skin. The place had been abandoned for years, cracked wood planks, broken light posts, and rotting fishing boats scattered across the water like forgotten ghosts. It was the perfect place for a meeting like this, where shadows could swallow secrets, and no one would hear a thing. I stepped cautiously onto the pier, my heart hammering in my chest. The world around me was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt wrong, like the calm before an inevitable storm. I kept telling myself that this was it, the final confrontation, the end of the road. But what exactly was going to happen? What did Mara want from me now? I scanned the area, my eyes darting from one dark corner to the next, searching for any sign of movement. My breath fogged in the air as I stepped forward, each footfall echoing in the stillness. The only sounds were the distant crash of waves against the shore and the creaking of the old wooden planks beneath my feet. Then I heard it, a low click, followed by the faintest whisper of footsteps behind me. I spun around, my pulse quickening. But there was nothing, just the empty stretch of the pier. My instincts screamed at me to turn and run, but I forced myself to stay calm. If this was going to end, I had to face it head on. I took a few more steps, and then I saw her. Mara. She was standing at the far end of the pier, silhouetted by the dim light from the distant street lamps. Her posture was straight, composed, too composed. There was no sign of the frantic woman I had left behind. This was someone different, someone colder. Rowan, she said, her voice carrying over the wind. You finally decided to show up. I said nothing, just watched her as she stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the wood. I didn't think you would come, she continued, her voice eerily calm. I thought you might be too scared, too broken by now. But here you are. It's almost poetic. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Her words weren't just directed at me. It was like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and now she was savoring it. Why are you doing this, Mara? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. What do you want from me? Why can't you just let me go? She took another step closer, her eyes never leaving mine. There was something in them. Something far more dangerous than anything I had ever seen. You don't get to ask questions anymore, Rowan, she said, her tone turning cold. This was never about you leaving. It was about control. It was about power. You thought you could walk away, but you were wrong. I took a deep breath, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. This is insane. What do you want from me? She didn't answer at first. Instead, she just stared at me, her gaze piercing through me like a blade. And then, she smiled. It wasn't a smile of warmth or affection. It was a smile that made my stomach twist with fear. You'll find out soon enough, she said cryptically. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I wasn't alone. I could feel it, the presence of others, lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. Before I could react, Mara's voice cut through the stillness again. You were always part of something bigger, Rowan. You just didn't know it. And then, just like that, the world around me shifted. Everything I thought I understood, everything I thought I knew about my life, about Mara, was a lie. There was something darker at play here, something I had never seen coming. And now, I had walked straight into it. Her words echoed in my mind. You were always part of something bigger, Rowan. I tried to make sense of them, but the more I thought about it, the more my heart raced. I wasn't just talking to Mara anymore. I was talking to a version of her that seemed almost removed, cold, calculating. She wasn't the woman I had married. As she took another step forward, the distant sound of waves crashing against the rocks filled the silence between us. It felt like the entire world was holding its breath. You're not going to get away from this, she said, her voice now quieter, but sharper. You never really left, Rowan. You just made things harder for both of us. I could feel my pulse in my throat, but I couldn't pull my eyes away from hers. I wanted to yell, to ask what the hell she was talking about, but the words wouldn't come. Something about the way she spoke, the cold confidence in her tone, stopped me in my tracks. Who are you working for? I finally managed to ask, the words tasting bitter as I forced them out. She tilted her head, as if the question surprised her. Then, the faintest of smiles appeared on her lips. You're still in denial, aren't you? You think this is just about us. You think it's just about me being hurt. But you've been a pawn in a much bigger game, Rowan. One you've been playing for years. I took a step back, feeling the weight of her words press down on me. What game? What the hell are you talking about? She sighed, as if I were the one who didn't understand. It was never just about you and me, Rowan. It never was. She looked away, scanning the horizon like she was seeing something I couldn't. The truth is, we've both been players in something much bigger. And now it's time for you to finally understand. My head was spinning, and for a moment, I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. Mara had always been a part of my life, my entire life, but now I was realizing I had never really known her at all. Who was she really? And more importantly, what had I gotten myself into? Before I could ask another question, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. My heart nearly stopped. The man from the cafe, the one I had seen tailing me weeks ago. He was here, standing in the shadows, waiting for his cue. Mara didn't even acknowledge him. She kept her focus on me. You're not the only one who's been lied to, she said softly, almost regretfully. But we're all in this together now. My stomach dropped as the man took a step closer. His eyes locked with mine, cold and calculating. I couldn't look away. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was a game I hadn't known I was playing, and the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. The pier suddenly felt much smaller. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in. I took a deep breath, but before I could react, Mara stepped forward once again, her expression unreadable. It's time, Rowan. Time for you to understand everything. And then, everything went dark. The world around me seemed to freeze in that moment. The cold wind, the sound of the waves, the creaking of the pier, all of it faded into the background as I stood there, staring at Mara and the man who had been hunting me. It felt like a trap, a web that was closing in on me from every angle. But in that instant, something inside me clicked. I wasn't just a pawn in their game. I was more than that. I had the power to change the narrative, to decide my fate. They had played their cards, but now it was my turn. I could feel the fear rising in my chest, but I refused to let it control me. I had been running for so long, but I wasn't running anymore. Not from them. Not from anything. Enough, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. Both Mara and the man looked at me, surprised by the sudden shift in my demeanor. What? Mara asked, her voice tinged with confusion. This isn't me, I said, shaking my head. I'm not going to play your game anymore. I don't care who you're working for or what you think you can do. I'm done. I'm walking away from this. There was a long pause. I could see the wheels turning in Mara's head, trying to process my words, my refusal to be a part of whatever plan they had for me. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. Free from the constant fear, from the control they had over me. And then, to my surprise, Mara's face softened. It was a subtle change, but enough to make me pause. She took a deep breath, as if the weight of the situation had just dawned on her. You're right, she said, her voice quieter now, almost distant. This wasn't supposed to go on like this. I looked at her, my heart still racing. For the first time in a long time, I saw something other than coldness in her eyes. Regret, maybe. Or maybe it was guilt. The man behind her stepped forward but didn't speak. He seemed to understand what was happening. Mara wasn't the same person she had been just moments ago. She wasn't the woman who had been hunting me. I'm sorry, she said finally. I didn't mean for any of this to get this far. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell at her, to demand answers for everything she had put me through. But another part of me, maybe the stronger part, just wanted to move on. I was done with this life. Done with the fear, the games, the lies. I had been chasing something for so long, but now I realized that all I wanted was peace. I'm going to leave now, I said quietly, and I'm not looking back. I hope you can find whatever you're searching for. For a moment, I thought she might stop me, might try to pull me back into the chaos she had created. But instead, she nodded. I hope you find it, Rowan. Peace, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You deserve it. And with that, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. As I walked away from the pier, the first rays of dawn started to break through the dark sky. The world felt different now, lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The game was over, and I was free.